The cover page of One Piece chapter 1124, Best Friend, features Yamato saving a woman from being kidnapped on the way to Kuri. It seems like things are starting to get interesting with Yamato's pilgrimage. Morgans was eager to reclaim his position as the world's greatest source of news. To make the most of all the big stories, he wanted his people to make things seem as bleak as possible. They would take full advantage of the world's desperation to sell more papers. Vivi was disgusted. She argued that despite the gravity of his words, Dr. Vegapunk was optimistic until the very end. Morgans didn't appreciate the sass and threatened to expose the princess if she doesn't mind her place. But Vivi didn't back down for a second. She called him a liar that no one with a brain would ever listen to. The workers seemed to love it, but Wapol was getting nervous. He put on a big smile and reminded Vivi that Morgans is the only reason they're safe right now. Morgan saw this as a major opportunity since even the truth is alluring. He laughed at the thought of the world sinking. Since he already dominates the sky, the future ahead of them was actually exciting. With a wry smile, he hoped that Princess Vivi wouldn't regret disrespecting him. But again, Vivi would not budge. If the world was going to end anyways, she wasn't about to be submissive for the sake of survival. Morgans was pissed off, but decided to focus on all the stories they have to choose from. Wapol begged the princess not to ruin the one thing they have left. The stories being run are all related to the Yonko, Blackbeard vs. Law, Shanks vs. Kid, and how Luffy ruthlessly stole Dr. Vegapunk's life. Vivi did not like that last part. Then again, who could be blamed for Vegapunk's death otherwise? It definitely won't be the Marines, but with 3 out of the 4 emperors making big moves, I think Buggy is due for a big win of his own. Meanwhile, the Marines surrounding Egghead Island were unresponsive, even when the fleet admiral himself wanted a response. Akainu feared that somehow they had all been killed. Sentomaru was leaving with a rowboat and some supplies. The big man couldn't help but cry. So I guess Joy Boy's ancient haki didn't hit him either. Maybe it only affected creatures with negative intentions towards Luffy. Kizaru watched as Sentomaru left, and Akainu demanded to know what happened. Kizaru made his way past the unconscious Marines as his boss continued to call. The Admiral finally made it to the phone. Having just gotten up, he pointed out how loud Akainu was being. The Fleet Admiral hardly expected Kizaru to be the one answering. He wanted to know what happened to everyone else. Kizaru admitted that they're all knocked out and foaming at the mouth, the obvious after effects of Conqueror's haki. Disregarding that, Akainu wanted to know what happened with Saint Saturn. He needed to know if the Elder was safe, if the power station had been compromised, and if any of the targets managed to escape. But Kizaru's rank is just too high for him to be relaying information like that, so he'd leave it to the younger Marines when they wake up. Hearing that, Akainu chastised the Admiral for slacking off. That made Borsalino ask him a question. He wanted to know if the Lava Man ever had to kill his best friend. Akainu was silent. Kizaru remembered the first time he met the world's smartest man. He couldn't help but to look up at the doctor's massive cranium. Vegapunk just wanted to know how much he'd be paid. He was smart enough to understand that his arrest was just an excuse for them to use his intelligence. So he just wanted to know how much money they were willing to put towards his research. Kizaru thought that was pretty funny. Years later, he was there for the inception of Egghead Island. Even as an admiral, Kizaru did manual labor like everyone else to make it a reality. They were all happy, and Vegapunk had fulfilled his vision of an island that's 500 years in the future. But Kizaru helped to destroy Egghead Island, and he even killed his best friend. As the whole place burned down, he questioned Akainu's mention of slacking off. Overtaken by tears and emotions, Kizaru told the fleet admiral that if he's able to waste time doubting him, then the ingrate can come and see it for himself. For even the ever-cool and aloof Kizaru to crash out like this, Akainu could tell that it must have been one hell of a mission. So he didn't fail to apologize for overstepping. Kizaru just told him to watch his mouth. To everyone on the Sunny, the giant ship sounded pretty quiet. They wondered if the party had been cancelled. Frankie thought it was weird to stop after just one drink. Jinbei thought it was strange to see Luffy so sad, but he understood why. They failed to save Dr. Vegapunk, and it looks like they've already ditched their egghead outfits. Frankie argued that they had 5 elders, an admiral, CP0, the Seraphim, and a blockade of naval warships to deal with. He was still having a hard time accepting the details. To him, it was a miracle they managed to survive at all. Jinbei felt the same way, but Zoro thought it was pathetic, since Luffy is an emperor now. He argued that the death of an old man shouldn't affect their captain so deeply. A bit tough, but it's good to have different outlooks. Over on the giant ship, Lilith finally woke up, and everyone was happy to see it, especially Sanji. As she got up, Lilith tinkered with her earpiece and seemed to take in a bit of information. She realized that everything was huge since they're on the giant ship. The size difference is actually crazy. The Straw Hats broke the sad news about the other Vegapunks and apologized for their failure. On top of that, Nami expected Lilith to be a bit disoriented since Atlas hit her so hard. Lilith processed everything and told the others that she already heard about it all, which really confused Sanji. She excused herself to cry a little. Usopp had to wonder what about Lilith actually makes her the evil one. At most, I think we've seen a desire for funding and theft. If that's the standard, Nami is in big trouble. But in the next breath, Lilith happily expressed her hunger. She realized that this sensation was due to her disconnection from York. As a Vegapunk of greed, she used to eat for all of them. Thankfully, the Giants were kind enough to leave them a bunch of fruits. In another series, that might be unremarkable, but fruits in One Piece are definitely worth a bit more attention. When Brook pointed to the table, he also recognized the grim vibe coming from it. Luffy was sulking about Vegapunk. Chopper explained that Luffy's been beating himself up so much that he's only had 5 bunches of giant grapes, which was still way more than most could ever dream of eating. Lilith accepted Luffy's sadness, but again, she heard everything, so she'd come to a certain conclusion. Still, Sanji wasn't sure what she meant by heard. Lilith admitted that although she was sad and crying about everyone's deaths, it all came down to perspective. Then, she revealed the truth. All of the Vegapunks are alive. Everyone was shocked beyond belief. Lilith clarified that functionally, they're all dead. Now they were really confused. They had to wonder if she was talking about ghosts, which isn't so far-fetched considering they know about Perona, not to mention a certain Soul King. But knowing that it'd be hard to explain, Lilith just told Luffy not to be sad since he kept his promise. Pretty much as long as Punk Records exists, the Vegapunk satellites do too. All of their memories and such are stored in the cloud. It's why Oda was seemingly so ruthless against the Vegapunk compared to every other death scare in the series. Soon after hearing that, Luffy leapt onto a table and called out to the Giants. They could tell that he was in a much better mood. Luffy thanked them all for helping. Now that he was excited, they all decided to have a feast. From there, Usopp called out to Zoro below. The giant cook was waiting for this moment. He urged them all to eat their fill. It seems like Luffy's slump gave him enough time to whip up some food after appeasing the sun god's hunger. Robin hugged her favorite crewmate like a stuffed animal. Since they were headed to Elbaf, she might be able to see Saul again. Chopper was happy for her. But after hearing that, I suddenly don't think it will be that smooth. The Giants called for a toast from Luffy. They brought up Vegapunk's statement that whoever finds the One Piece will shake the world. They wondered who Straw Hat expected to get it, which was exactly the trigger Luffy needed. He doesn't care if you're with him or against him, because no matter what, Luffy is going to be the king of the pirates. They were all happy to celebrate their victory and the ultimate one to come. They have set course for the northeast. They now approach the fabled land of giants, Elbaf. We're then left to wonder what waits for them on the legendary island. A drinking man seems to beckon their approach. It is seriously impressive how many silhouetted characters Oda has shown us lately. At the very least, I think we can expect Luffy to get stronger on Elbaf. Gear 5 is incredible and seems to get stronger every time we see it, but Luffy's energy depletion is a major setback. We also just saw an incredible display of haki that is way beyond anything Luffy can do, but it was done by the predecessor of his power. When it comes to training and getting to that level, someone old is an easy assumption. We already know most of the big players to some degree. A young person beyond Luffy's current level is pretty unlikely. Someone like Rayleigh or Hyogoro betting on him makes more sense. Which brings us to the possibility of Scooper Gaban. He was effectively the Roger Pirate's third man, the Sanji if you will, although Zoro would probably argue that he's number 4 right now. Whatever the case, Luffy is due for some improvements, and upgrades for Usopp are pretty mandatory here too. So be sure to leave us all your Elbaf excitement in the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.